foldable smartphones are the following huge thing. With organizations including Motorola, Xiaomi, Huawei, Samsung, and presently Oppo all fiddling with the foldable structure factor. In spite of being similarly laid out of the door with the Oppo Find N, the organization appears to have struck gold, with highlights, design, and usefulness that frequently outperform the opposition, and at a less expensive cost as well. The main catch: it's a China-just smartphone for the present, without any designs for Oppo to deliver the Find N globally. And that is an enormous dissatisfaction thinking about the heavenly foldable experience on offer. Design and construct: strong, hardy design. Great pivot framework with no apparent hole. No water opposition. The Oppo Find N is, somehow or another, an intimately acquainted gadget. It sports the very inside crease that opens like a book as key opponents including the Huawei Mate X2 and Samsung Galaxy Z overlap 3, yet it presents a couple of key contrasts that could make it the best foldable design to date. The most immediately observable is the size of the external display. At the point when any semblance of the Mate X2 and Z Overlay 3 are shut, they're entertainingly lengthy and slim with tall, thin viewpoint proportions that look somewhat odd, particularly Samsung's 25:9 angle proportion. That is not the situation with the Oppo Find N, however. It sports a minimized 5:49 in display with a 18:9 perspective proportion for a more regular chunk smartphone experience when collapsed, with the special reward of being substantially more reduced in the pocket than its adversaries as well. The bezel encompassing the external display is marginally thicker than 2022 leads, and there is a midway positioned opening punch camera that is more extensive than some could like. However, these aren't components that reduce the general insight. As a matter of fact, something you'll likely not notice in no less than a little while of utilizing it. The phone feels reassuringly strong when collapsed, with a close total seal that gets by far most of residue and soil far from the inside display, and pivot when placed in a pocket. A periodic piece of residue or buildup can in any case show up. Yet it's not even close as a very remarkable concern, similarly as with the apparent hole of the Z Overlay 3. You can really put a piece of paper between the two parts of the Find N and have it stay entirely set up. It probably won't seem like a lot, yet for foldables, that is an enormous arrangement. The main disadvantage to utilizing the Oppo Find N when collapsed is, similar as its adversaries, its weight and thickness. It's basically a two-phone sandwich when collapsed, and that implies it measures in at 15.9 millimeters thick, practically 1.5 millimeters thicker than the Mate X2 and Z Overlap 3. However, it's barely lighter than Huawei's choice at 275 grams. When completely open, you're blessed to receive an enormous 7:1 in display, with comparative bezels and an indistinguishable roundabout camera cut out. However, this time it has moved to the upper left, where it's all the more effectively disregarded. Beside the plastic interior display, the Find N has worked from a blend of metal and glass. Oppo has gone all out on the fine subtleties like the design for fine specifying on the pivot, and a glass back with an inconspicuous shimmer that cause it look and to feel like a superior gadget. Displays: ravishing interior 7:1 and 120Hz display. Square angle proportion doesn't play well with all applications. Cover display restricted to 60 Hz. Both of the Find N's displays sport AMOLED tech for a brilliant, lively involvement in colors that jump out of the screen, and on the off chance that that is not as you would prefer, the liveliness can be changed in the settings menu. That is basically where the likenesses end. However, as dissimilar to Huawei and Samsung, Oppo's Foldable offers an alternate refresh rate across the two screens. Goal is another differentiator, with the title page display coming in hardly under Full HD at 988x1972, while the interior display is FHD Plus at 1792x1920. It's as yet a slight goal downsize contrasted with the Mate X2 or Z Overlay 3. Be that as it may, notwithstanding the restricted refresh rate and the reality I had an enormous far-reaching inner display readily available, the recognizable perspective proportion and minimal elements of the cover display implied, I wound up utilizing it more frequently than expected, particularly when all over town. Camera: extraordinary threesome of back-confronting cameras. Noteworthy camera tuning. Night mode has serious room for improvement. Huawei's foldable Mate X2 goes all out on its camera, presenting with lead-level snappers, while Samsung adopted a more safe strategy with a threesome of 12MP snappers on its Galaxy Z Crease 3. Oppo finds an agreeable center ground between the two, wearing a fundamental wide 50MP snapper close by a 16MP 123-degree ultra-wide, and a 13MP 2x fax with the capacity to catch noteworthy shots with a tap. You'll probably find yourself utilizing the really 50MP snapper more often than not, because of great specs including a f/1.8 gap for respectable low-light execution, multi-directional stage identification self-adjust, and optical picture adjustment. The only one of the three focal points offers the adjustment tech. Execution: Qualcomm Snapdragon 888. 8 divided by 12 GB of smash. 256 divided by 512 GB capacity. Leader-level execution. Yet interactivity covered at 60 FPS. You'll find Qualcomm's Snapdragon 888 at the core of the Oppo Find N, matched with either 8 GB or 12 GB of smash, and 256 GB or 512 GB of stockpiling relying upon the variation you select. It passes up the fresher Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 of 2022 leads. However, this was in fact delivered not long before Qualcomm uncovered the redesigned processor in late 2021. Furthermore, it's a similar processor you'll find in the similarly superior Galaxy Z Overlay 3. It additionally benchmarks well, with brings about line with other foldables as well as other premium smartphones, but falling somewhat behind 8 Gen 1 prepared gadgets as you could envision. Battery duration and charging: 4500 mAh battery, 33W wired, 15W remote, 10W converse remote charging. Amazing battery duration while utilizing either display. Like other book-style foldables, the battery cell inside the Oppo Find N is parted into equal parts, one on one or the other side of the pivot component, with a consolidated 4500 mAh limit putting it a very short ways off of Samsung's Galaxy Z Overlay 3. With regards to battery execution, it'll to a great extent rely on how you utilize the Find N in the event that you find yourself utilizing the more modest 60Hz cover display, a suitable choice because of a normal smartphone perspective proportion. You can undoubtedly crush north of a day's use, however that will drop once you begin utilizing the bigger 120Hz board. Software: runs Android 11 with ColorOS 12. No Google Play, yet simple to introduce. Bloatware and Chinese applications come pre-introduced. Extraordinary foldable software upgrades. Software will probably be the greatest issue for Westerners that need to import the Oppo Find N. Likewise with a China-just concentration, it doesn't deliver with Google Play. What it accompanies, nonetheless, is a great deal of bloatware and Chinese applications that are yet to be converted into English. As a matter of fact, that is a subject across the operating system. While the greater part of Oppo's ColorOS 12 has been deciphered, you'll periodically go over a menu or an application just accessible in Mandarin that incorporates Oppo's own application store that you'll have to use to refresh a portion of the stock applications on the phone.